everybody, welcome back to NSB Custom Cars. We got the motor all painted and got it the right color this time. We're pretty much ready to almost marry it back to the transmission. I've already took care of the transmission. I've already got the seals and stuff put in. At this point, I've got to finish dressing this motor out. I want to get some motor mounts put on it. The oil filter housing needs to go on it and a few other little pieces on it. And then I'm going to put it to the transmission. I may get the headers put on. I'm going to try to stab this in the car with the headers on. So we'll see what happens. So let's get busy. After doing all this paint, I like to chase these holes out with a tap. That way you don't have no bolts binding up or anything. Also, we're going to do all the exhaust ports the same way. Right here is where the oil filter is going to go on with the oil filter goes on here, and then this goes on to the block. So we'll get all these holes cleaned up. Especially the exhaust. You want to do the exhaust because, you know, they get really hot. They get rusted up some, so we need to keep them cleaned out. This is one of the little best tools that I've came across, a little T-handle. You can adjust this up and down. You put your socket on the end, or you can move it on the T part of it and put it on so you have some really good leverage. And this thing does a lot. Man, this is Craftsman, been a nice saver. You ought to get you one if you don't have it. On this motor, they call these heads D-port heads. The reason they call it a D-port head, because if you look at the center exhaust here, you got two D's back to back. They only made this a couple years. See, the other ones are oval. And that's the reason they call this the D-port head. Another thing I done to this motor is on the front of the cam, they have this disc with a roller wheel on it. This is pretty much called an orbital wheel, and it goes on front of the cam. And as you can see by the hole in the center, it's offset. So when the motor spins over, this kind of does this oscillation. And the fuel pump would come in. Let's see, I got the old fuel pump here. Here's the old fuel pump, which it went on the motor block right in here. And this orbital wheel, it would run right on that. And as this goes around, it makes this go up and down, it pumps up fuel. We're not using this. We got this fuel injection system, it comes with electric fuel pump. I didn't put this back on the cam, I just went ahead and put the washer to hold the gear on, because we didn't need this in here just spinning and rattling for no reason. So we have to buy from Mr. Gasket a block off plate. This is a nice chromin. Goes right here over it, blocks that hole off. Let's keep the oil from running out of it. So we'll put that on. On most of my gaskets, I use this Permatex high tack. It pretty much glues this stuff on there. It makes you have to scrape it off or you have to go back into it, but it keeps it from leaking. And it does make a mess sometimes, so don't get it on you. Well, I got the motor stabbed back in. I'm dressing this out. I've already got the power steering pump. Got the alternator, brackets and all on. So next we got to put our new AC pump on. And then we'll start dressing the fan, the belts, and get all that back on the front. But before I do that, because all this is going to go on pretty easy over here, it's all brand new stuff, I'm going to raise this up and I'm going to take this gas tank out, because I got to put a return line This is fuel injection, so the fuel comes up, goes to the regulator and carburetor, and goes back, or the throttle body, and then it's going to go on back into the tank. So I got to get this line put in. So I'm going to get on to that. That way all the bottom side's going to be finished. But let me take a look at it. So you can see the headers went on pretty nice here. I did have to move the transmission lines over a little bit because they were right here underneath this header on there, but that's the only thing I had to do on this side to get this to go in. Everything went good on this side. This side over here was a little bit more intense. For one, our the key park safety lever here, which I just undone up here on the top. I ain't got my key back in it yet. Unfortunately, this rod was right on top of the tube. I don't know why they put this big bend in that tube back there. So I had to relocate a lot of this, rebend this tube. It took 3 or 4 hours getting this back and forth, till I finally got it to where that all works. The other thing is proportioning valve. It was down here on the side of the frame, down here, and it was hitting the header. So I unbolted it. Right here's the hole for it. I moved it up. I'm going to take this bracket off. I'm going to rebend it, and I'm going to mount it up top here and bring it over just a little bit. And that'll be okay. We got plenty of flex on all these lines. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. I'll push this line back down and put a little bend in it. These are all brand new stainless steel lines. I put these on 15 years ago. So it's not going to hurt them none. So let's look underneath it. So here's the underside of the car. I had dropped the pan on the transmission here. Dropped the pan down. Put a new gasket, new seal in. Or new seals in the transmission, new filter. You can see the headers are they still even got plastic on them right now. That'll be my next, bringing my exhaust on back. Got the cross member in. All this backside underneath been nice, painted, cleaned up. So the next step now is we got to drop this tank. I'm gonna get this tank down and put a return in. There's one option they was giving us that you could put the return right here on the neck and let the gas run back in the neck. But I'm gonna get it dropped down, see if we can't do something different with that. I'm gonna look at it. I'm not gonna rule that option out, but that's a long ways to run the line. But let me get this dropped down and we'll go from there. Well, it's Sunday night, the weekend's coming to an end, and we got quite a bit done on it. I mean, we got the motor put in, almost got the motor dressed out, and the big thing I did on today was getting all this fuel system put in, because I had to drop the tank down and do some work there. So let's go back and I'll show you what I had to do. So right here is where the fuel came out originally, and it went into this steel line right here, which went all the way to the front of the car. But what we done is this line here is now a return line. So this line is going to be coming back from the front of the car, coming down. We took this line, now this line goes all the way up to the front of the car. That's going to be our new feed line. To do that, I had to take the tank down and pull this out. And this one line here was a 1/4 inch. It has to be at least a 5/16 or bigger. So what I did, let me show you here. So as you can see, this is the original supply line that had the little bitty 1/4 inch that came out for your return line on your stock fuel pump. And when it came in and turned, it went down into it. It had this little bracket inside that held this. So what I did is I pulled this out, drilled the hole out for this size. It had a little nipple on the end, and I made this the same. I come over here like this, and I put a bend in it. So identical to this, but it's now a 3/8 line. And I inserted that in the pickup. The pickup and where it reached the gas gauge. So that's where this was in. So all I had to do was put all that back in, and we took care of that return. So We run this all the way forward to the car. So our line is running exactly where the old return line was. It comes down, we got our first fuel filter that's on the frame right here. Then our fuel pump, and they come up here in front of the cross member. There's our high pressure filter. So now all I have to do is put a line on it and come on up to the motor. Until I get everything put on the motor, I mean, that's going to be an easy, quick, put a hose on it, clamp. There was nothing to that one. So we'll get that took care of just as soon as I get this motor, the rest of this motor back on. But that was pretty much all day job, dropping that tank and putting all that on. So that's pretty much going to take care of this video. It's been a pretty productive weekend. Every day I come home from work, I'll probably come out here and tinker with it, a few little things here and there, try to get some more of this motor dressed up. And I still got to get these hoses on this box for this air conditioner. But the next thing I'm going to do is get this pump put on, the AC pump put on, so I can get them lines run in. And my goal is by this next weekend that's coming up, is we're going to hear this thing start up and hopefully run. So until next time, don't forget to like us, subscribe. Y'all take it easy.